What started as a seemingly quiet contract disagreement has now escalated into one of the most unsettling dramas the K-pop industry has seen in recent years. Danielle's separation from NewJeans was never just a routine idol agency dispute hidden behind legal documents and closed-door negotiations. From the very beginning, there was a sense that this situation carried deeper tension, something unresolved and quietly volatile beneath the surface. As details slowly emerged, it became increasingly difficult for observers to frame this as a clean break or a simple misunderstanding between artist and company. For months, conflicting statements from both sides painted two sharply different realities. ADOR maintained a controlled, corporate tone, emphasizing contracts, obligations, and stability. Danielle, on the other hand, retreated into near silence, a move that only fueled speculation across fandom spaces and industry circles. Fans initially clung to hope, believing reconciliation was still possible, that this was merely another chapter in the long history of idol management friction. But as weeks turned into months, optimism gave way to unease. The breaking point arrived when ADOR officially announced the termination of Danielle's exclusive contract, confirming her removal from NewJeans after prolonged legal conflict. According to the agency, this was not an impulsive decision. They described a pattern of unresolved disputes, failed negotiations, and actions that allegedly made continued collaboration impossible. The language was firm, final, and carefully constructed, signaling that this chapter was being closed by force, not mutual agreement. ADOR framed the situation around one core issue: broken trust. They cited repeated violations of contract terms and decisions they claimed threatened the group's reputation and commercial future. This was no longer about creative freedom or personal disagreement. It was about control, authority, and the rigid structure that defines survival inside the K-pop system. When the court ultimately sided with ADOR, validating the contract's legitimacy, it appeared, at least legally, that the company held the upper hand. Yet legal victories do not always end stories. Danielle was left isolated, separated from her group, facing professional exile and looming consequences that extended far beyond the courtroom. As the remaining members resumed activities, her absence became louder than any statement she could have made. And just as the public began to believe the controversy might quietly fade, new questions started to surface, hinting that the real story was only beginning. If you want to understand how this situation shifts from a legal dispute into something far darker, make sure you follow the channel and keep watching. What comes next is where everything starts to feel deeply wrong. The moment that reignited the entire controversy did not come from a courtroom ruling or an official press statement. Instead, it surfaced quietly online, almost unnoticed at first. A single image began circulating across social media, showing Danielle away from stages, spotlights, and performance schedules. She appeared relaxed, smiling, seemingly engaged in charity work alongside volunteers. To casual viewers, it looked like a harmless attempt to rebuild a sense of normalcy after a brutal public fallout, a former idol choosing something meaningful over fame. But in the K-pop world, nothing exists in a vacuum. As the image spread, fans and critics alike began examining it more closely. Details that initially seemed irrelevant quickly became central to the discussion. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, were shapes resembling professional filming equipment, a large microphone, camera rigs, individuals who did not look like volunteers, but production staff. What was supposed to represent a private, low-profile activity suddenly felt staged, or at the very least, carefully documented. The narrative shifted almost instantly. Questions replaced sympathy. Was this truly charity work or was it content? Was Danielle simply volunteering? Or participating in a filmed project while still entangled in legal disputes? In light of ADOR's earlier claims about unauthorized activities, the timing could not have been worse. What once looked like personal healing now risked reinforcing the very accusations that led to her removal from NewJeans. Speculation exploded. Some claimed the event had been planned in advance and connected to a Korean variety production. Others argued that intent mattered less than optics. Even if Danielle never appeared on screen, the presence of cameras alone suggested involvement in structured media activity, precisely the gray area she could not afford to enter. In an industry where image and legality are inseparable, perception often becomes reality. As online debate intensified, public opinion began to fracture. Supporters defended her right to live freely. Critics saw another boundary being tested. And in that growing divide, one thing became clear. The controversy was no longer fading. It was evolving. As the debate surrounding the charity image intensified, another detail quietly surfaced and shifted the situation from uncomfortable to potentially serious. Short clips and screenshots allegedly connected to the filming began circulating online, and viewers quickly noticed something that raised immediate concern. Danielle was heard referring to herself using the name NJZ. Under normal circumstances, the reference might have passed without comment. But within the legal context of her contract termination, it triggered alarm bells across industry watchers and legal observers alike. The court ruling had been explicit. Danielle was no longer permitted to independently use the NewJeans name or any branding closely associated with the group. That boundary was meant to be clear, enforceable, and final. So the resurfacing of a name tied so closely to the group reopened questions many believed had already been settled. Critics argued that even casual usage risked misleading the public into thinking she still maintained an official connection, potentially undermining the brand that ADOR retained full legal control over. At this point, the narrative shifted again. The controversy was no longer limited to a single appearance or disputed image. It began to resemble a pattern. To skeptics, the charity event, the presence of filming equipment, and now the branding issue appeared interconnected rather than coincidental. Each element aligned uncomfortably well with ADOR's original claims about repeated boundary violations and disregard for contractual limits. Supporters pushed back, insisting that context was missing and that short clips rarely tell the full story. They argued that habits formed over years do not disappear overnight, especially under intense stress. But even among neutral observers, there was growing agreement on one point. Danielle was navigating a legal minefield. With lawsuits unresolved and scrutiny at its peak, every word and every appearance carried disproportionate weight. What made the situation even heavier was the sense that these were not isolated missteps made in ignorance. Many began to wonder whether warnings had already been issued behind closed doors, whether Danielle fully understood how close she was to crossing irreversible lines, and whether this outcome had been quietly approaching long before the public became aware. Just as public focus seemed locked on Danielle's actions, attention slowly began shifting toward the people and environments surrounding her. New rumors surfaced, suggesting that this controversy extended far beyond a single charity appearance or a disputed name. Online discussions claimed that Danielle's mother being named in the lawsuit was not incidental, but connected to broader plans unfolding quietly behind the scenes. What initially sounded like speculation soon gained traction as whispers of a potential documentary project began circulating. According to these claims, the project allegedly centered on Danielle's marathon training alongside Sean, the same figure linked to the charity event that reignited the controversy. If true, the implications were significant. A documentary is not an accidental appearance or an informal recording. It is a structured entertainment project, one that would almost certainly require agency approval under an exclusive contract. In this context, the charity work, the filming equipment, and the rumored production no longer felt isolated. To critics, they appeared interconnected, forming a sequence that suggested planning rather than coincidence. The unease deepened when Sean's past associations resurfaced online. Old photos connected to his charity circle reappeared, drawing renewed scrutiny. One image, taken years earlier, included figures who were later exposed and convicted in some of the most infamous scandals in K-pop history. While the photo predated those crimes, the optics were deeply uncomfortable in hindsight. For many observers, it raised questions about judgment, proximity to controversy, and the environments being normalized under the banner of goodwill. This development shifted the narrative yet again. Danielle was no longer being viewed as an isolated individual making risky choices, but as someone stepping into a network already burdened with controversy. Even neutral observers admitted the timing could not have been worse. With legal pressure mounting, every association amplified suspicion. What might have been framed as recovery or personal growth now felt, to critics, like another dangerous blur between image management and genuine intention. And with each layer uncovered, it became harder to believe this situation was anywhere near resolution. When all the pieces are placed side by side, what surrounds Danielle no longer feels like a single mistake or an unfortunate misunderstanding. It looks like a slow collision between legal boundaries, public image, and decisions made when caution mattered most. What began as a contract dispute has evolved into a web of suspicion, resurfaced controversies, and damaging optics that refuse to fade. And with legal pressure still active, this story is clearly not over. If you want to stay ahead of what happens next, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. The next chapter may change everything.